Good greetings, everyone. It is Professor Perello with your Persuasion in Real Life podcast. And this week we are speaking with, let me just say, one of my favorite people ever. Her name is April Sager, and she is a learning and development manager at a very prestigious and prominent healthcare company. Globally renowned healthcare company, but due to confidentiality reasons, we are not going to disclose that information today. So, hi, April, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And just so everyone knows, April and I, we've known each other for a long time. We're actually siblings. I know. I recruit the best people. The secret's out. I know. I was like, April, should I tell the students that you're my sister? And they're like, yeah, they're probably gonna figure that out.
I think they're gonna. But if any of Professor Perello's students would like some embarrassing stories about Chris when he was little, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and be happy to share.
Thanks so much, April. No, she definitely has some really great stories on me. Make sure that I get a cut of that pie, folks. If you get a little
you got it
of that. I'm happy to play along with that, April. So April, can you tell us a little bit about what a learning and development manager does, and essentially how is learning and development different from, let's say, high school teacher or a college professor?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So as you know, I've done both. I was a high school English teacher in my past life before going to the healthcare company that I work for now. And I'm a learning and development manager now where I'm at. So have stayed in that same education field, but it is very different teaching high schoolers versus teaching adults. I would say, one of the main ways it's different is that high schoolers, you have pretty much a captive audience. They have no choice but to be there.
They're forced to be there,
right? Go to school, and they pretty much have to learn what your curriculum. I was a teacher in New York State, so you have a state curriculum, and you're pretty much told what to teach and when to teach it, and the kids don't really have a choice. I would say one of the main differences then with teaching adults is that they don't have to be there. They, maybe sometimes their manager requires that they go to a training or something, but, we always start out any type of training or curriculum with what we call the WIFM, what's in it for me. You really have to WIFM, it's called what's in it for me. We really have to sell it to adults because they don't have to be there. So we have to make them want to be there. So there is a lot of persuasion there, and persuading adults that how is this training going to benefit me? How is taking 2 hours out of my busy workday to come to your training on remote management worth my time? What am I going to get out of it? So I would say that's probably the major difference. And just so your students are aware, I have a couple of instructional designers that report to me. So we do both, virtual instructor-led training and web-based training, e-learning training. We design for the company.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer being in person, or do you prefer the virtual aspects of it?
That's a good question. I mean, me personally, I don't get really an opportunity as a manager that much anymore to do it. I actually am going to teach a class in September that I'm excited. But of course, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do any in-person training since COVID. So most of it is virtual instructor-led training over WebEx. But I prefer the in-class. I mean, I'm a teacher at heart, right? I like having the audience. I like being in the room, being able to sit with somebody one-on-one. But then on the other hand, I also do again, something I don't really get the opportunity to do much anymore. I do like the design, being creative and designing a web-based training or an e-learning that, is eye candy for folks. But
I guess my students right now are like, gosh, darn it, why didn't you get Professor Perello the instructional design background that his sister has? Because my Blackboard LMS is, and they just redid it like randomly when this four
Yeah.
students had to sign on. And so like they're probably rolling their eyes like, really, Perello, we wish we would have had April design our class.
Well, hey,
So,
I'm an accidental instructional designer. I did not go to school for that.
that's
I
right.
fell into it at my company. Somebody came to me one day and said, "Hey, you were a teacher, right? Yeah, I think you'd be good at this." And I learned it. So
That brings me to my next question, April, is that, and you talked a little bit about how you essentially need to persuade adult learners and to incentivize them to come to trainings and to extend their professional development.
right.
How now, thinking back to when you were in the classroom, I know that was a while ago, and when you were especially leading trainings, what types of persuasive strategies did you take part in to get your students to engage and really like maintain their attention, especially when stuff was kind of like silly or dry?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
strategies did you think worked well, or which ones do you know do not work well?
Yeah. So back when I was a teacher a long time ago, 10 plus years ago, I mean, one of the things, so that's one thing I think is not different between high schoolers and adults. Like you do have to pull them in, get their attention, make it relatable to their lives. You know, when I had to teach the Odyssey, okay, that's not the most like
Homer,
exciting,
great, yay,
exciting book to teach.
Cyclops.
Yeah. But I always tried when I was teaching to make it, you know, somehow, especially, well, let's take Shakespeare for an example. I taught a lot of Shakespeare and I love Shakespeare. Most high schoolers, not so much,
I
but
did not in high school. Yeah.
I always tried to make it relatable to like today. You know, don't think of the story as in the 1500s. Let's think of it as it's 2020 and well, let's not do 2020, 2018.
2019,
And,
yeah.
and you know, like, you know, Romeo and Juliet, you're hitting, you know, your boyfriend up on Instagram and his mom blocked you, you know what I mean? Like, so he's tried to make it relatable to today and their lives. You know, when I did vocabulary, you know, we had to do vocabulary quizzes every Friday. Who wants to sit there and memorize 15, 20 vocabulary words and look at flashcards? That's boring too. One of the things that I did was I would put them in groups and I would give them all week to practice, and they would come on Friday before their quiz and they would do a skit. They had to act out a skit
Actually
using
perform.
the vocabulary words, you know, and it helped them remember them from, like, say they did a funny skit, and plus it, you know, it made it fun. And I would say we do this similar thing with adults. You know, we try to use a lot of stories, you know, stories about our customers, stories about customer service reps, or, you know, how does this relate to you? Let's follow a customer through their journey having one of our healthcare plans. You know, they have to go to the doctor. They find out they need you know, dialysis. You know, so we try to do a lot of scenario-based learning, a lot of storytelling.
Well, April, I have to say, you are preaching to this week's content. I kid you not. We covered Walter Fisher's narrative paradigm theory. And narrative paradigm theory states that humans are inherently storytellers. And that is one of the number one ways we can persuade folks to listen to us, is by telling interesting stories.
Yep. Look at that. We didn't even plan that, I swear.
No. That's awesome. Wow, April. Okay, A+ for you.
Thanks.
Awesome, April. Okay, moving on to my next question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So as a learning development manager, you are in a tough position organizationally, because you have instructional designers, you have trainers underneath you, you've got obviously the customer service folks and the different professionals who rely on those trainings. Then above you, you've got some directors, you've got some tough business folks that you have to deal with as well.
Yep.
If you can, relate persuasion to this, that'd be great, but don't stress about it. But how do you negotiate those relations? Oh, Oh,
We're gonna
is
have a
that
special guest.
Chippy? Hi, Chippy. Oh, I never get to
Sorry.
see Chippy. That's fine. At
Yeah,
least,
he
oh,
never
there's his butt. Chippy loves showing his butt to the camera,
he
everyone.
does. Sorry, God.
No, that's fine. How do you, I'm sure you've had managers or directors above you who either disagree with the way things have
Yep.
gone, or you have people underneath you who either complain or bitch about like, oh, this was a waste of my time, or why didn't we learn this, or this was stupid. How do you deal with that as a professional?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, that probably, I'm not gonna lie, is probably one of the toughest aspects of my job, is dealing with different business leads and stakeholders and trying to get them to buy in to the solution that we're selling to them. Um, I would say, one thing that we do is, we work in the ADDIE model, analysis, design, development, implementation, so on and so forth. The analysis piece is really probably the lengthiest piece of our work and the most important piece of our work because, we really need to do a really good deep dive analysis, surveys, pulling data, reporting, interviewing, roundtables, focus groups, anything that we could do to gather enough data that when we put our solution together and put it in front of stakeholders, we have facts and numbers to show them. Like, look, this is what people
Evidence.
are telling us. This is what we're hearing. This is what we're seeing. This is the solution we're proposing in order to resolve this. And there's always negotiation there. But the analysis piece is the most important piece of the work that we do. So we actually come into a project meeting prepared, and we have numbers, stats, and facts, and level one reactionary survey data to show them. So I'd say that's one thing. I would also say, we were just talking about storytelling. I'll just share a quick example of something that happened recently like that, where we were trying to push this scenario-based, web-based training to somebody, a business, a stakeholder, and they sort of had a bad taste in their mouth from a previous training where somebody did a role-playing thing like that, and it just wasn't realistic for what they needed. They were like, there's never going to be two guys sitting on a bench drinking coffee talking about group Medicare Advantage plan. Like, that's not going to happen. So they didn't like that. So we kind of had to recover from that and say, okay, we get that didn't work for you, but we want to tell your story then. What is realistic? Who would actually be having this conversation? And once we kind of, let them write the story instead of us telling them what the story was, it ended up working. They liked it. But, it does take a lot of like maneuvering to get some buy-in from people.
Yeah, it's a power play. Like, okay, give your stakeholders the autonomy to kind of choose their own adventure, and then you folks as the professionals can try to package that and manipulate
Exactly.
that in a way to work for both of you folks involved.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
I could have used your tip last week with data and evidence when I won't get into it. But there was a small data issue with me last week on my job. So thanks, April, for that strategy.
No problem. Data. They can't argue with the numbers.
No, and that's what I love about it. Again, evidence. And that's all part of reasoning and logic when you're trying to persuade people. So
Yep.
Yours. So I am gonna ask, so I do have two more questions, and I'm sorry. Are you good for like two more questions? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I know when we get together, we talk a lot.
We could talk for hours.
So clearly, like you have, let me just say, like teaching runs in our blood, I would say, as in our family. And like we've had a lot of teachers in our family, and we've had some amazing teachers. And I know, April, you've probably had some terrible teachers that I can just think off the top of my head. Some of those that I had when I was in high school after you graduated. Can I ask, like, some of those teachers, especially who inspired you, what was it about those teachers that really got you excited for learning and got you interested in education spaces?
Oh, that's a good question. I always have a tough time with this question when people are like, who do you admire most? Or who was your hero growing,
Your
and I was
hero,
like, I don't
yes.
know,
It's a
Janis
loaded
Joplin. I don't know.
It's Lady Gaga, April. We all know that. Okay.
Even though she's like 20 years younger than me.
She is.
Yeah, I would say, for better or worse today, like, even though I'm not in this field, but I really like, you and I, Chris, we both really enjoy like politics and the news and current events and things like that. And I would probably say I think you had him too, our 10th grade social studies teacher, Mr. Sassy.
Robert
Yes,
Sassy.
that was his real name, Sassy.
Sassy.
I really enjoyed him, and he got me, I always did okay in social studies. I didn't love it, but it was like, I don't know, it wasn't that hard.
You're like,
I could
whatever.
read about
Dates.
history and answer questions about it. But I think he really, okay, this is really going to give away my age right now. I remember sitting in his classroom and watching them read the O.J. Simpson verdict live. He was like, this is live. We're pulling a TV in here on a cart and we're watching it. And he just really felt it important that we needed to like be there live for history, as it was like, he knew that was a history making moment. Yeah. And we needed to be there to see it. So I really enjoyed him. He really got me into like current events and watching the news and like being curious and interested in what's going on in the world around you, not just what's happening in your own little bubble. So yeah, and plus he was just hilarious. I mean, I was not we both know that I wasn't like the easiest teenager growing up. I was
No, neither was I, April, but you set the stage for us younger kids. So you did a good job, let me say.
Yeah, and he just knew how to like handle me. You know what I mean? Like he knew like I had, my issues, but he knew how to deal with me and make things fun and be funny and joke around with me and make me relaxed and make me feel comfortable and want to learn. So I would say he was probably one of my biggest inspirations in school.
I think almost what you're getting at is that he made you feel valued. He identified with you. He made it look like he was empathizing. And that to me is the most incredible thing, that a middle-aged male teacher is circa 1990, whatever.
With a 15-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's huge. And I remember high school being a very challenging time for all of us at that age. And so to have almost like a role model like that is indeed like a really great feeling that follows you throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Wow. Yeah. I never actually had Mr. Sassy, by the way.
Oh, you
Damien
didn't?
Damien had Mr. Sassy. I had, not a good teacher for 10th grade social studies. No, but I was in 8th grade math class when that decision was announced. And I remember Mr. Renwick in 8th grade, him pulling out the TV for that too.
Oh, yeah? So, yeah. Good for them.
Times.
Good for them for doing that. Yeah.
So April, look, I know you are going on vacation shortly. By the way, where are you going? Are you going to?
We're going to Hershey Park.
Oh, that's right.
We're not going to like the Bahamas. We're going to Hershey
April,
Park.
This is your chance to like totally make up something like, oh yeah, we're going to Iceland.
We're taking a 6-day cruise to. I'm vaccinated. I can go on a cruise.
That's right. So I promise I just want to ask this question, and you can make it as quick and simple as possible, but especially for the students on here who are applying for internships or jobs in the next semester or so. April, you do a lot of hiring, team members, you sit on committees, you chair committees, you do a lot of the interviewing. What's like your number one tip? Thinking of Persuasion, I guess to some extent, what is your number one tip for students, for people who are going into job interviews?
Yeah, so I would say, be prepared. Like research the company that you are going for the job interview for. Like, don't just roll up there the day of and think you're just going to wing it. You know, read up on the company, read up about their culture, their mission, vision statements. You know, if you could find anything out about the team in particular, you know, just come prepared. Because that's what always impresses me the most, when somebody has already done their research, you know, and they know a lot about the team, the company, they know the right questions to ask at the end. You know, when we open it up to them, we usually give people like 15 minutes at the end. Okay, what questions do you have for us? And when people have really thoughtful questions about, you know, like, well, what's the culture of your team? I read this about your company. What do what do you like most? Why have you stayed there for 10 years or whatever? So that would probably be, I mean, of course, when we're interviewing, we're looking for certain competencies too that are related to the job role. So we're looking for people to give us stories. Again, it's all storytelling. We're looking for stories. We want you to tell us what you have done in your past, you know, and what the result of that was. But again, I think my biggest tip is, you know, do your research and be prepared with good questions, and know what you're talking about when you go for that interview.
Yeah, because especially they're going to ask you something that you weren't prepared for regardless. So by making sure you're prepared, that one question or that one story you're kind of surprised by isn't going to throw you off.
It's not going to ruin the whole thing. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We're not looking for anybody to be perfect. We understand people are nervous. You know, at my company, we're doing interviews on camera, like, you know, I would also tell people to familiarize yourself with the technology before you go. I've gotten on interviews with people before and they can't figure out how to, like, I can't hear you. I can't, you know, that takes up like 10 minutes of the interview.
It's so important. I do have to say, I feel like we've become a little less formal with that. We've almost become a little bit more okay with maybe a child in the background or your cat showing the hole in the camera or something.
I was doing an interview with somebody back in, like, I don't know, February and March. My daughter was home and because their school was closed because of COVID, and literally she was having a meltdown, like right here. I had my arm up. She spilled chocolate milk. She was hysterical crying, and I was like, had my hand out, and I had to keep going.
You gotta keep going too. Like, that's another thing. If you're telling a story, you've got to perform, you've got to act almost like, you know, act like it, you know,
no matter how you're feeling on the inside, just keep on smiling on the outside.
No. Oh, April, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
This was fun.
I appreciate it. And students out there, I hope that that you do not try to bribe my sister at getting some useful information.
That was a joke.
But I will be able to validate and verify if that is in fact true. April, thank you so much. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
I appreciate this, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, you.
April. Bye.
Take care. Bye.